Acting Madam Deputy President, and there must be a blue moon tonight because it's not often I agree with Senator McKim on most of his motion. I'm not too keen on the national freeze on rents, even though I accept it's a genuine problem there in regards to the rents. But much, much more needs to be done than just allowing an unelected and an unaccountable RBA to run riot and destroy the economy through this blunt instrument known as qualitative easing. For too long, Western governments have relied on these central bankers who are unaccountable, who are all report to the International Bank of Settlements, and we've had that confirmed by Michelle Bullock in the last set of estimates, where she admitted she wouldn't release the minutes of those meetings with the International Bank of Settlements because they wouldn't be allowed back at the table. I mean, that's not what I call accountability. But I'll address that issue on another day. I want to go back to the crux of this, which of course is the cost of living and the crisis that is going to be caused by the RBA's reckless behaviour. Reckless behaviour. And the problem with the RBA is that they are all lifers. The last 4 RBA governors all started work at the RBA. They've all had careers in the RBA and they have no idea of what goes on in the real world. They are theoretically, they base everything on theory and very, very little on practice. And I think that we need to look at, and I know that Senator Kim was touching on this, I didn't quite pick up all of it, but I think I'm on the same path as him. You know, they only deal with, and I've asked the RBA this myself, they only deal with the demand side. Right? What we've got here in Australia at the moment is that we've had supply shocks. So people often think that inflation is caused only by too much demand. That's not the case. And, you know, if too much demand is trying to make ends meet, well, I'm sorry, but that's not too much demand. That's a lack of productivity in our own economy because we don't build enough nation-building infrastructure to actually provide essential services at affordable rates. And what we really need to do in this country is stop being afraid of building infrastructure, in particular what I call the Sovereign Seven, which are dams, rail, road, power stations, telecommunications, and airports and ports. And those are the things that if we supply more of those things through quantitative easing, and no, everyone, you know, I was brainwashed. It took me 30 years to unbrainwash myself because I had this rubbish forced down my throat at university. There is nothing wrong. We see companies do it all the time. They issue shares, they issue equity, they issue new equity to build a new mine. As a country, we can issue new equity to build infrastructure. It's debit asset, credit equity. Or if you want to call it, you can create an infrastructure banks here at the federal government level, and they can lend to the state governments, and then the state governments pay interest back to the National Infrastructure Bank, and then the National Infrastructure Bank can pay dividends back through to the federal government, which will basically be a form of raising revenue, adding more infrastructure and more supply to the economy, which will push down the prices of essential services. And that's not just good for the cost of living, that will make it more competitive for our businesses to compete with other businesses in the world. Now, if you look at China, for example, they didn't go out and borrow billions and billions of dollars or trillions and trillions of dollars in US dollars. They actually did all that infrastructure building in China on the back of their own central bank. And should I add, we have a history here in Australia of doing the same thing. One of Australia's first governors, and he was the first governor to issue our own currency, was Lachlan Macquarie. He built the Sydney Hospital, the Sydney Barracks, with our own currency, the holy dollar. That was Australia's first currency. Unfortunately today, that holy dollar is used as the logo for Macquarie Bank, who happened to actually act on, because of superannuation, and this is what people don't want to admit about superannuation, is the fact that that facilitated the privatisation of our infrastructure assets, so that now that they're in the hands of unelected superannuation board members. But can I just say, though, there's other things we can do to ease demand on inflation, and that is we should look at lowering the immigration rate. Now, most of our immigration, 2/3 of our immigration rate, is driven by foreign students, and these foreign students, the universities don't actually have to pay tax on the income derived by foreign students. So if you want to talk about a super profits tax, let's make universities pay tax on the profits they derive from foreign students that will reduce the demand caused by over-immigration.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.